How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Amatsutsumi. So in the last episode, we went on a date with Mana. We've been hanging out a lot with her recently. It's as if we're in her route or something like that. And yeah, it was just a day out with her. If anything, it kind of helps her character, or help understand her character a little bit more. Instead of just being the character that came from the village here, that's supposed to be Makoto's fiance, and is trying to watch over him while also convincing him to return home. She is a lot more alive. Or at least that's my opinion from what I got out of the last episode. But yeah, let's jump into this one. Let's see what new adventures await for us here. We're obviously following Mana at this time. My eyes open on their own very naturally. I stifle a yawn as I sit up. Man, I really wish the music was playing, during the intro. That would have been cool. But I don't feel drowsy. My mind is clear and refreshed. For the last few days, I've slept very well, untormented by any bad dreams. Just in case, I loosen the front of my yukata and peek down at my chest, but I'm not sweaty at all. It's a great morning to wake up to. And it's all because of one thing. I softly trace my lips with a finger. I feel like the sensation of our kiss is still lingering there. Makoto has been so nice to me recently. I'm sure it's partly because I've encouraged him to be that way. But when I'm with him, I can tell that it's really of his own accord that he's treating me so well. Just thinking about it brings a smile to my face. Yeah, recently I've been able to spend more time with him than before. If I include the time we spend sitting in class, we're together even more than we used to be back in the village. I'm glad. Being with Makoto makes me very happy. He and I are like the two wings of a bird, each meaningless without the other. Oh, how romantic. I've come to realize that even more after he disappeared from the village and I followed him here. Now that I'm living in the outside world, I find there are more good things about it than I had thought. I think I've come to understand, to an extent, what has always drawn Makoto to it. There are many attractive things in this town that I didn't have in the village. More than I could ever count. Interesting books, delicious food, convenient, useful tools, and friends my own age like Kyoko. These are things I never could have experienced as long as I stayed in the village. There I never really felt like I was missing anything. I had barely ever thought about wanting to leave like Makoto always had. I wasn't completely uninterested in the outside world, but I always regarded it as something irrelevant to me in my life. I wouldn't mind if I never saw it in my whole life, nor would I feel disappointed. That's how I felt at the time. I was born in the village, grew up in the village, and one day I'd bear and raise Makoto's children in the village and eventually die in the village. That's the life I always assumed that I would lead, and still think I will even now. I still do think that, but it's true that I enjoy life here in this town more than I ever expected I would. When I first arrived, I was determined to force Makoto to return with me to the village, even if I had to use my Kotodama. But on the night I found him here, the look in his eyes changed my mind. It was the first time he had pleaded with me with such conviction in his eyes. And he really seemed happy, even though he was on the brink of death. And so despite myself, a kind of envy grew in me. I started to wish that I could experience the same things he was experiencing. That night when Makoto finally closed his eyes to sleep, he looked truly at peace. So while I envied him, at the same time I felt a great relief. Makoto's happiness was always my greatest wish, and Nozomi's. Of course, if he had died, it all would have been for nothing. Because his Kotodama power was relatively weak, he managed to avoid killing himself. But that just means that he was lucky. From now on, I have to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. I slowly get out of bed, being careful not to make too much noise. I don't want to wake Kokoro. I look at Kokodo's bed, where she should be sleeping, but she's nowhere to be seen. If so, that's incredibly early for her. I went to bed before her last night too. I quickly look at the clock and then breathe a sigh of relief. In fact, I woke up a little earlier than I usually do, which means that Kokoro really did wake up abnormally early today. But in the back of my mind, I have a strange feeling that something is wrong. I quickly leave the room, apprehension in my heart. My fears are perfectly confirmed. Kokoro is fast asleep, splayed out on Makoto's bed. Aw, man. It's all too clear what happened here last night. I don't see Makoto, but I hear some sounds downstairs, so he must have gone to make breakfast. Yeah, that also happened in the end of the last episode. I feel my heart quickly grow cold. I look down at Kokoro, sleeping peacefully on the bed, and open my mouth to speak.
Kokoro.
She doesn't wake up at the sound of her name, but she frowns and moves her body, indicating that my voice is reaching her ears.
私の質問に答えなさい。
Oh boy. I knew it was a bad idea. I didn't think it was fair. That was wrong. This morning is quieter than usual, yeah, for now. Alone in the kitchen, I'm preparing our breakfast and lunch. I stretch still a little tired from last night's activities. I'm probably responsible for having fully awakened Kokoro's sexual desire over the past few weeks. You think? You think, my man? That may have been a careless thing to do. Fuck yeah, it is, 100%. Though considering that I'm also making her believe that I'm her brother. Yeah, we already went through that though. But looking at her happy face as she lay sleeping next to me this morning, I knew that responding to her desire wasn't a mistake. And that should about do it. The food is ready now. I'll pack some of it into our lunch boxes and keep the rest aside for breakfast. I've gotten faster at preparing food in the morning, which is good, but I think I was a little too fast today. By the time everyone comes downstairs, our breakfast will be cold, and I'll have to reheat it. Thought I heard a noise. I got a little scared there. It's hard to get the timing right. As I turn around to take an empty lunchbox down from the shelf, I come face to face with Mana. I didn't notice her approaching. How long has she been there? Good morning. You're early today. Breakfast is almost ready. I think everyone else is still asleep, but do you want to have yours first while it's still warm? I greet her as usual, but today she doesn't answer. She just looks at me with an indescribable non-expression on her face. Mana, what's wrong? Yeah, my man, my brother in Christ, or whatever. What are you doing? Why are you pretending that that shit didn't happen? Why are you acting as if you are reacting as if there was no sex scene there, that I had cut it out, like I did in the previous episode? She was in such a good mood yesterday too. Did she have a nightmare last night or something? Why are we being so oblivious to this?
心から聞いたわ、誠。ゆうべ、心を抱いたのね。
Well, there goes our cheerful music. She speaks coldly without raising her voice or shouting. It sounds like she's really just asking me a question. She must have used her Kotodama to learn the truth from Kokoro. Yeah. It's impossible for me to hide anything from Mana, so I answer honestly. Well, I did think we might be found out since Kokoro was sleeping in my bed, but she was sleeping so peacefully that I couldn't bear to wake her up and make her go back to her room.
なぜ?
She wanted me. She seemed overwhelmed by the feelings in her body and mind, and I wanted to do what I could. I'm not saying it's her fault that we slept together. I'm the one who did it in the end.
そう。
Mana exhales deeply. Then she looks at me again.
誠はあの子を、心をどうするつもりなの?
You'd think that we'd already be done with her arc, you know, no more with Kokoro, but now she's still around.
恋人にして、いずれめとる気なのかしら?
No, not really. How could I? I don't even know how long I can stay here, how long this artificial family relationship will hold together.
そう。そこはまだまともなのね。でも、それならなおさらよ。どうして抱いたの?
She looked like that she didn't know what to do herself, and I couldn't just let her be like that.
そんなもの言霊で、どうとでもなるでしょ?
What she's saying isn't wrong. If instead of sleeping with Kokoro, I'd use my Kotodama to calm her down, make her forget what she saw between me and Mana, but I didn't want to choose that option. I do think it was selfish of me, too. I choose my words carefully. My Kotodama is already making her believe that I'm her brother. I didn't want to control her mind even more. I know we're not really related, but for the time being, I'd still like to treat her right.
それも例の、笑顔を守る約束だと。
She shakes her head slightly in disbelief. Yes.
あなたは間違っているわ、誠。本当は、自分でも分かっているのでしょう。
She narrows her eyes as she continues.
ここの人間に、あなたは情を移しすぎる。
Oh, absolutely.
私も今は、その気持ちが多少わからないではない。でも、やっぱりそれは、神のあり方として、間違っている。
She speaks calmly, but her words carry an undeniable force as they pierce through me.
人の思いに、ずっと答え続けることなんてできやしない。いずれ去るときには、必ず言霊で心をねじ曲げることになる。
Yes. She's right about that too. All I'm doing is delaying the inevitable, postponing what I must one day do.
あなたのしていることは、人間にしてみれば、偽善のはず。一時だけの希望を、いたずらに与える神の傲慢だわ。きちんとそう自覚した上でやっているのなら、私は別に構わないけれどね。
I don't have anything to say for myself. She's perfectly identified the contradictions that I've been living with.
誠。私はね、あなたのことが心配なの。
You know, now that she mentions it, I'm a little worried too. Probably not for the exact same reasons that she just stated, but I can't deny the fact that he has become really attached. He has really grown to enjoy his placement, but contradictions was just stated. He knows what he's doing is wrong.
あまり入れ込みすぎると、別れが辛くなるだけよ。
Her tone softens a little as she tries to reason with me.
所詮、神は神。人は人。世界が交差することはあっても、決して一つに重なることはない。
I know, but still at least during the time I'm here,
あまり小さな子供のように、ダダをこねないでちょうだい。
Mana,
黙りなさい。
My mouth is forced closed by her Kotodama. I can feel the strength of her will in her words. I'm surprised by what she's saying and doing, but at the same time, I know she's justified. This conversation was a long time coming. It just happens that today is the day it's occurring.
そうやって、人間に情を移しすぎて、一度あなたは死にかけた。
Yeah.
とても危険な兆候だわ。私としては、看過できない。
Her fingers touch my cheek, tracing it down to my chin.
本当なら、今すぐここで、里へ戻れと命じたい気分よ。でも、それはしない。誠自身に、考えてほしいから。
Her voice is gentle now as she leans in to kiss me.
あなたには、私だけ。私には、あなただけ。でも、ここは少し雑音が多すぎるから、思い出させてあげる。
She takes one step back from me and closes her eyes.
我は我がことも一言、世ごとも一言、言い放つ神。
She's concentrating hard, preparing to speak a powerful Kotodama. But what on earth could it be?
私以外の人間の姿は、
Oh
見えなくていい。
no, bro, what?
私以外の人間の言葉は、聞こえなくていい。誠の世界は、私と二人だけ。
Wow. Oh. It's so cold. Oh wow, this music. That's the first thought that comes into my mind. An instant later, I see it. White snow appearing out of thin air, fluttering to the ground. I've never seen it this clearly before. This must be proof of how much of her power she just used.
見えるのね。私の雪が。
She sees what I'm looking at and narrows her eyes in satisfaction. I still can't speak, so I simply nod.
喋っていい。ただし、 言霊を使うことはできない。
One more Kotodama flows into me. My lips regain their ability to move. Don't do this, Mana. I've been forbidden to use my Kotodama to give Mana orders, so all I can do is ask. A Kotodama this strong will put a strain on your body. The stronger the Kotodama, the more of one's life force it consumes.
もちろん、わかってる。私はそれでも構わないわ。
She looks at me coolly.
誠、あなたは少し、こちらの世界にかぶれすぎた。
So now we can only see you? We can only interact with you? You're the only character we can?
多少荒療治ではあるけれど、こうでもしないと、冷静になれないでしょ。
Mana. Her voice is as quiet as ever, but utterly implacable.
私のことは抱かなかったくせに悲しかったわ。刃物を突き立てられたように
And that's understandable,
胸が
100%.
痛んだのよ。
I'm with Mana on this one. As she looks into my eyes, her gaze shows not anger but sadness. Mana, I'm sorry,
謝らないで。
She puts a finger to my lips and smiles.
言葉だけの謝罪なんて。あなたは心を抱くという行動で自分の考えを示した。しかも、未だ後悔はしていない。
She sees right through me. It's probably impossible to convince her now.
反省は態度で示してちょうだい。そして、それが私が認めるに足るものになったら、その時、言霊を解除してあげるわ。
She turns on her heel and starts to walk away. Mana, wait.
触らないで。
Alrighty. I reflexively try to grab her arm, but her Kotodama stopped me before I could reach her.
しばらく、お互い一人になってよく考えましょう。私たちの関係。その原点を。
Now, I'm fully aware that their village customs and where they came from and their beliefs and basically their form of logic is very different from that of modern societies. But, I mean, come on. If they're engaged, if they are set to marry and live their life together, and they, I would assume, love each other, then why has Makoto been going around and fucking some bitches? I mean, Mana kind of understood, you know, like, okay, you know, he was here by himself, so Kokoro, Kyoko, whatever. But now Mana's here. And she's even stated that, like, hey, I'm here. You don't need them anymore. It's all me. And during this entire arc of hers, it's never happened. It's never happened. We even went on a date with her, and the same day, it didn't happen with her. It happened with Kokoro. None of it seems morally correct to me. And with that, she's gone, leaving me alone in the kitchen. Should I chase after her and try to argue with her? If I do that, it's clear that we'll just repeat the same conversation again. Mana said that we should spend some time alone thinking. The fact that she chose this path instead of just forcing me to go back to the village shows the depth of her feelings toward me. It might be too late now, but I need to engage with those feelings sincerely. It's time to face this head on. The first step is to understand my situation. I searched throughout the house, but I can't find Kokoro or Azuki-san anywhere. No, I'm sure they are there. I just can't see them. Of course, I expected this based on how Mana phrased her Kotodama, but that doesn't dampen the impact. My lack of surprise actually makes the feeling even worse. I knew how powerful her Kotodama could be, but this is demonstrating it to me all over again. Damn, we're truly alone then, aren't we? At least through our perspective. I try going outside, though I know what to expect here too. At this time of morning, there are usually people walking by on their way to work or school. But today, there's not a soul in sight. I can hear the sound of the wind and the chirping of birds in the trees, but not a single human voice. It's eerily calm. It's proof that Mana's Kotodama is working perfectly. The down, bereft of its people, the utter silence is almost beautiful. It's almost like I've entered another world. But it feels all the more bizarre because the landscape is so familiar.
あまり不用意にうろうろしない方がいいと思うわよ。
I hear Mana's cold voice from behind me.
あなたには見えないだけで、向こうからはあなたが見えるのだから、異常な行動をする人間がいる。と、いぶかしまれる可能性が高いわよ。
What about Kokoto and Azuki-san? Could they see me just now when I was looking for them in the house?
いいえ、
I turn around to see that she's slowly shaking her head.
あの二人にも、誠を認識できないようにしておいたわ。
Oh, thank God. But everybody else, you know?
どこへ行ったのかしら、と思っている。
Oh no.
でも、誠には関係ないことよ。気にしているうちは、絶対に解いてあげない。
She looks at me with what seems like pity in her eyes.
誠は私だけを見て。私のことだけを考えてくれればいいの。あなたは、外の世界という、歌方の夢にとらわれすぎている。少し頭を冷やして、目を覚ましなさい。
She speaks softly, but with great determination. I mean, personally, I can't really agree with, her, I don't know. What she's arguing for, I can't really agree with. But then again, this is a God trying to live as a human situation, not a human trying to live as a human type of situation. If that were the case, then, I mean, everybody would have to agree that what Mana's doing is completely wrong. I don't think it's fair, I think is the right term to use. I return to my room. Mana returned to her own room as well to rest. The Kotodama took enough out of her that she said that she won't go to school today. She was right about it being dangerous for me to go outside while I'm unable to sense other people. I could bump into someone and hurt myself or them. Or in the worst case, I could even get hit by a car and die. Mana didn't go around and speak Kotodamas to everyone in town. And of course, so everyone but Kokoro and Azuki-san can still see me. So if I move slowly and carefully, I might be able to rely on other people to get out of my way. But there's no point in going anywhere right now anyway. Even if I went to school, I wouldn't be able to hear my teacher or classmates talking to me. I wouldn't even be able to see the fuss I'd no doubt cause. I'm completely at a loss for what to do. As I sit down and stare up at the ceiling, a groan escapes my lips. This is not great. In fact, I've gotten myself into quite a bind. My body is not physically restrained, but practically speaking, I'm unable to do almost anything. But it's all my fault after all. I look out the window and see a blue sky getting brighter as the sun rises higher. At this time of day, I have usually already left the house. I'm sure Kokoro has left for school too, though my mind wasn't able to perceive it happen. Mana must have told her something to satisfy her about my absence. She probably also told Kokoro to spread whatever she said to my classmates and teacher as well. But Mana still hasn't forced me to return to the village. That means that she's still willing to give me some time. I think.
誠、あなたは少しこちらの世界にかぶれすぎた。私自身も。あなたは外の世界という歌方の夢にとらわれすぎている。
I think the way that she said "to" is important. It means that she's not totally denying everything about the outside world. But there's one thing in particular.
私のことは抱かなかったくせに悲しかったわ。刃物を突き立てられたように。
So his goals here have to be to create purposeful distance between him and those that he most definitely has began to care about ever since coming here. And secondly, he needs to repair the connection that he has with Mana, because, you know, at least I can say that that part is what he did there was completely fucked up. Like, I keep arguing it, but yeah, I mean, come on, dude. What she's really questioning now is my priorities. When I left the village, I had resolved to leave her behind. I do like her, and I had plenty of regrets about leaving her behind, but my desire to leave the village stood above all. I was fully prepared to never see her again if that's what fate demanded, but she followed me and is now here with me. What that means is that unlike me, she was never prepared to accept being apart from me. Of course. I'm finally realizing it all too late. I'm finally realizing just how much Mana truly cares for me. For all these years, when I didn't even know the true nature of Kotodama, or that I was only still alive thanks to my mother's sacrifice, she always stuck by me, no matter how I troubled her with my unreasonable whims that have only become more unreasonable of late. Maybe her teasing attitude toward me was born out of a desire to pay me back for all of that? No, I'm sure most of that is just her natural personality. Anyway, she's always been dead serious about my relationship, and yet, ever since I came here, I've been blowing her off. Of course she'd be hurt. I think I underestimated the depth of her feelings for me. I still don't regret sleeping with Kokoro per se, but I do think I could have been more considerate of Mana's feelings. I mean, I'll give Makoto the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't seem like the relationship that he has with Mana is totally mutual from what he's saying here. So maybe communication could have helped there? Like, he does appreciate Mana, but he's not like deep ass in love with her or anything like that. Maybe that's the problem? But still, like, they were kind of hanging out for so long there and then, like, jumped on over to Kokoro. It just, to me, still doesn't seem totally right, but at the same time, his idea was, I need to help Kokoro out, I don't want to use my Kotodama, because I'm trying to act more human-ish. In the first place, if I was being firm in my convictions, maybe I should have rejected her as soon as she arrived in town. I had resolved to leave Mana behind in the village, so why was I now letting her back into my life? She loved me enough to follow me all the way here, and I accepted that love too lightly out of pure convenience. I saw that she was still willing to forgive my transgressions, and I took that for granted. I assumed that in the end she would always accept whatever I did, no matter how much she might seem to sulk or pout about it. Those kinds of thoughts had started to lodge themselves in my mind at some point, and Mana could see right through them. Or through to them. I'm a real piece of shit if I do say so myself. And despite all of that, even now, she's still giving me a chance. Blaming all of my mistakes not on me, but on the influence of the outside world. And even speaking a Kotodama so powerful it could put her own life in danger, just to try to set me straight. But even now that I've realized all of that, it's strange, but I don't feel all that different from before. I'm neither panicked nor depressed at the new situation that Mana has placed me in. I was able to comprehend all the things I just thought about. Just as Mana said, it's important for me to think them over carefully. If I were to put into words what I've realized about my own actions and about Mana's feelings for me, I think those words would be accurate. My words would probably be well suited to describe what a normal person should likely feel were they to be put into the same circumstances. But they would still be nothing more than words. My heart, my feelings, haven't yet accepted these things or things that my mind has realized. And the reason is that even now, I still trust Mana. I trust her. Once I say it out loud, I'm even more sure. I didn't speak a Kotodama, but my own words still reverberate in my chest and reach my heart. I know that I trust her. It's obvious if I think about what would happen if our situations were reversed. If Mana had found something so precious to her that she was willing to give up her life for it, and was on the brink of death, I know that I'd save her without a thought. And I'd do so even if that meant losing my own life. So after I saved her, I wouldn't think that she owed me her remaining life in return. Even if I was being yanked around by her crazy whims, I wouldn't feel even the slightest anger toward her. I wouldn't want anything from her in return for saving her. And I wouldn't regret saving her either. To me, not saving Mana in such a situation would be unthinkable. The words thank you, or even a simple grateful smile would be enough or good enough for me. That's all I would need. And I'm sure that she feels the same way about me. Well, back her up a little bit there. He did say something that made me reconsider what I had brought up a few episodes ago. that the whole Mana saved his life sort of deal, probably giving her life force over to him, that's still pretty vague because he kind of passed the fuck out and then Mana disappeared again until she popped up as like a reoccurring supporting character like everybody else. But the questions are along the lines of what's going to happen to Makoto and Mana. What is their situation? Are we on a ticking time clock? And was Mana's intention of saving Makoto for him to have to dedicate the remainder of his life to her? Because if so, that's pretty selfish. But also, you know, her intentions also could have been out of kindness. I mean, there's more unknowns that we can attach to this. That's why even now in this extreme situation, I can remain calm. Because Mana is Mana. Mana. And so, yes, I see. This situation may have been created by a very strong Kotodama, but it's not a show of force at all. It's a request. That night when I lay dying on the lake shore, I made a request of her too. I wanted her to let me live out here for just a little longer. Here I learned to smile and Mana was happy for me too.
Makoto は私だけを見て、私のことだけを考えてくれればいいの。
That in turn is her request to me. Until now, I never realized exactly how she felt, even though she was doing her best to help me all that time. So all I can do now is do my best to try to help her, and wait for her to realize how I now feel, just like she waited for me. Yes. In any case, my own feelings are now settled. I don't know how long it will take for Mana to understand that, if she ever will. But regardless of that, I'll do it because I know it needs to be done, and not for any other reason. I think that's important. I wonder if this is part of gaining what Hotaru would call a color. I think back to what Hotaru told me that day. I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. However, it's clear to me that it's what I need right now. I mean, we could actually go find Hotaru, or get in contact with her. That'd be pretty helpful. When I visit Mana in her room, she's sitting on the floor looking off into space. Mana. I call her name from the doorway.
どうしたの？もう音をあげたの？しばらく一人で、と言ったでしょ？
Yes, you did, but can I come over there?
どうぞ。
Thank you. I sit down next to her, making sure I don't touch her. Even though we're not touching though, I still feel the cold radiate from her skin. I've never felt it this strongly. Is it a change in my perception caused by her Kotodama? Or has her own condition gotten worse independently of me?
何の用なの？
Nothing really. I just felt like being near you. But if you don't want me here, I can go somewhere else. She looks hard at my face. It's as if she's trying to weigh my intentions.
別に、誠がそうしたいなら、好きにすればいいわ。
Okay. I look up at the ceiling. The snowflakes are still falling out of thin air. It's cold, but beautiful too.
そう？
She holds out her hand, cupped as if to catch the falling snow. But as soon as each snowflake touches her hand, it silently disappears.
そうね。人が見れば、美しいと思うのかもしれないわね。
Oh yeah, but to her it's probably annoying as fuck.
私は見慣れすぎて、すっかり当たり前のものになってしまったけれど。
She speaks softly, gazing at her hand. Do you dislike the snow, Mana? Nozomi's last words on her deathbed had become a Kotodama, heard only by Mana. They had weighed on her like a curse ever since.
正直、嫌いも好きもないわ。もう自分の一部だもの。
I still feel like it's something more than a Kotodama. I don't know. She shrugs and then hugs herself and shivers.
まあ、この寒さだけは困りものね。でも、仕方がない。
I guess you can argue that it's a Kotodama that's so strong that it could actually warp the perception of those around her, perhaps? I don't know. Like, she's not actually cold. It's just that she perceives herself as cold because of the Kotodama that she can not escape at all, and everybody that gets close to her is kind of latching onto that strong Kotodama, getting that cold presence around her. The adults back at the village had tried everything they could think of to free Mana from this curse, and failed. Knowing that she would be stuck with it for the rest of her life, she must have made her peace with it. And it is possible that she thinks the same way about me too.
わざわざ雪の話をしに来たの?
Not really, but it is a good topic. Until now, I haven't talked to her much about the snow. That's because talking about it will inevitably lead to talking about Nozomi's death. It's a sad memory for me, and surely an even sadder one for Mana, who is Nozomi's own twin sister. But I've always wondered about the snow. Even early on, when the village adults were frantically trying to get rid of it, Mana never really seemed too bothered by it. It was almost as if she knew from the beginning that their efforts wouldn't succeed. But if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. We can talk about something else, or we don't have to talk about anything at all. It would be nice to have a conversation with her, but it's more important to me right now that I be by her side even if we don't talk.
変な誠。
She looks at me curiously, her expression softening.
私はてっきり、早く言霊を解いてくれ。
Oh, that ain't happening.
そう言いに来たのだとばかり思っていたのだけれど。
Well, I do want you to cancel your Kotodama, though. I'm worried about your health, too. A Kotodama as strong as this must be putting quite a strain on her body, especially since its duration is indefinite. But Mana surely knows her limits and how to use Kotodama safely a lot better than I do. And yet she still spoke this Kotodama, knowing all that. The depth of her resolve means I won't be able to convince her with shallow arguments. She also told me not to apologize. That means that apologies aren't going to convince her to cancel her Kotodama either.
やっぱり、怒っていないのね。
After looking at me for a while, she makes a strange observation. We actually aren't. We actually are not angry. I think when we were trying to argue back with her, when the Kotodama was put on us, it was more of like disagreement, but not necessarily out of anger. Angry.
こんなひどい仕打ちをするなんて。
That never even crossed my mind. We've had our share of quarrels in the past, but at least right now, no part of my brain has any desire to be angry with her. Everything she's doing now is because of my own actions. In fact, I'm more surprised that you're not angry at me. She is.
そんなことないわ。怒っているわよ。多少な。
She closes her eyes and exhales.
強い言霊を使ったから、あまり気力が湧かないだけ。
Opening her eyes again, she gazes dully at the snowflakes dancing in the air around her.
雪の話。私は別に嫌いじゃないわ。誠の方が避けているのかと思ってた。
Oh, I only did it because I thought you didn't want to talk about it. We had been misunderstanding each other for all these years. I guess that even when you've known someone since childhood, there can still be things you don't know about each other. I thought it would be painful for you to be reminded of Nozomi.
そうね。確かに辛いわ。最後の夢を見るたびに、今でも飛び起きてしまう。でも、
She looks down.
忘れてしまうのが、もっと耐え難いの。そういう意味で、この雪が絆。私にとって、救いであるのは事実よ。見れば嫌でも思い出す。望みの意志は、まだ私の中で生き続けているって。
Yeah, I understand very well what she's saying. No matter how painful your memories of a lost loved one are, it would be even more painful to lose those memories, excuse me. Now that I've regained my memories of my mother, I can say that from the bottom of my heart.
だから、あなたのお母さんのこと、ずっと黙っていたのは、心苦しかった。
It wasn't your fault. It wasn't anyone's. The villagers kept the truth from me for my own good. Even now that I've learned that truth, I hold no resentment against them whatsoever.
なんだか、妙な感じね。
She looks at me sideways with a wry smile.
私、あなたと冷戦中のつもりなんだけど。
If you mean you don't want to talk to me, I can just sit here quietly if you prefer. I definitely don't want to displease or provoke her.
そんなことはないわ。
Then can we talk some more?
ええ。 でもまだ、言霊を解くつもりはないわよ。
Oh, that's fine. I feel like this is going to be going on for a bit. She doesn't sound like she's trying to drive the point home to me. She's just mentioning it, but I can still feel her resolve in the words. I'm sure you don't, but that's fine by me. It's just, I realize once again how much I want to get to know you better, to understand you better. I need to. I suspect that because Mana was always the closest person to me, I had lazily postponed many things I shouldn't have. I thought she'd always be there, and I thought there'd always be a chance for me to broach whatever subject. It's been nice to have such a secure relationship, but security can also lead to laziness if one isn't careful.
Makoto.
Now that I think of it, I've never really asked you face to face about what happened the day Nozomi died. I'm sure it's painful for you to remember, but if you're willing, would you tell me about her last moments? Me, Mana, and Nozomi. It had always been the three of us until that decisive moment when we had to say goodbye to Nozomi forever.
いいわ。
She closes her eyes and then begins to tell me her story. Oh boy, I knew there was going to be a backstory. There just had to be. Alright, well, before we get into all that, that'll be the next episode. I ain't ready for that. Not in this one. I am too scared to get all sad and shit, so we'll save that for the next episode. Well, what an interesting situation we've gotten ourselves into. I would like to make a small observation before we end the episode, if you guys don't mind, or you guys can just click off of this episode, it's okay. But I find it interesting that every route or every story that we've gone into so far has had some sort of connection with death. So Azuki-san was practically on death's door, of which we learned about the true power of Kotodama, in which we were on death's door. And that was Kokoto's story, her arc. And then Kyoko's story or arc involved her dead young friend Suzuka. And we went through all of that. And now here we are. Nozomi died many years ago, and the snow falling is that connection that she has with her even after all these years later. So, I don't know, maybe there's a connection with death because, you know, Kotodama, now that we know it's a life force sort of deal, maybe that's it. I don't know, but just wanted to share that little observation with you guys. Thank you all for watching this episode. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy shit. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.